Okay, so in the last class we have discussed majorly about the concept of electric potential. We have discussed about the concept of electric potential, which is a very important topic as far as the examination is concerned. The relation that we have between the electric potential and the electric field intensity is very important. Okay, both the relations. Okay, so V is going to be equal to minus integral of E dot dl, and E is equal to the of minus del V, the gradient of the potential. So both the formulas are very important in the examination point of view. As well as we have seen a Maxwell's equation for the static fields, which gives you the relation that the closed line integral of E dot dl is equal to 0 or del cross E is equal to 0. Okay, so these three relations are very important. Apart from that, for point charge, when we have to find the potential, then the electric field is given, the potential is given by Q divided by 4 pi epsilon naught R, which is a very important formula. And then we moved into the concept of capacitance. Capacitance, which is also equally important and also a simple concept, right? I'm sure all of you are aware of the concept of capacitance. You have learned quite a few things in the subject of networks. Okay, so here we are going to see a very simple concept regarding the capacitance. We have started discussing about the parallel plate capacitor, which is the most important part, and we will also see the two different types of other capacitances, spherical and coaxial, which are not important in the examination point of view. Okay, so this is what we have discussed in the last class, and in today's class, the learning objectives for today's class is that we will be discussing about the concept of boundary conditions. So what is a boundary condition? Why do we require this boundary condition? We will be discussing that, and after completing this topic, we will be going to the concept of image charges. And then we will start discussing about the magnetic fields, the static magnetic fields, which we call as the magnetostatic fields. So these are the topics that we are going to cover in today's class. Okay, probably we will not complete magnetostatics completely, but we will enter into a good part of magnetostatics. So that is what we are going to do in today's class, where the region is again divided into two parts, exactly equal to two parts. One is having 5 mm separation and the other is also 5 mm separation according to the question which is given. The first one is filled with the air, whose epsilon r is given as 1, and the second one is filled with the glass, whose epsilon r is given to be 4. So what is given here is also the dielectric strength, right? The dielectric strength of air and glass are 30 kilovolt per centimeter and 300 kilovolt per centimeter. So dielectric strength, can you please tell me what is dielectric strength? What can you understand by this word dielectric strength? What is the meaning of this word dielectric strength? Yes, please. From the unit of it, we can understand that it is something like an electric field only. You can see that the dimension of it is given as, or unit of it is given as volt per centimeter. So understandably it is nothing but, so it is an electric field that can be sustained by the dielectric, right? So in a way, we are talking about the maximum electric field or critical electric field that a particular dielectric can survive or sustain without any breakdown. So once you are applying an electric field which is more than whatever rated electric field or maximum electric field, then what you're going to see is the breakdown. So once the dielectric breaks down, it will be working like a conducting material. It will be working like a conducting material, which we don't require, okay, which we don't want it to happen. Okay, so here the dielectric strength has been given to us, that the dielectric strength for air is 30 kilovolt per centimeter and for glass it is 300 kilovolt per centimeter. Now the maximum voltage in kilovolts which can be applied across capacitor without breakdown. So what is the maximum voltage that you can apply across the capacitor without any breakdown? Can you please tell me based on the data which is given to us regarding the dielectric strength, which is going to be stronger and which one is going to be weaker. We are having two dielectrics here, one is air itself and the other is glass. So which dielectric is going to be stronger from the values which are given? So the stronger one is nothing but glass, because this can withstand more amount of electric field. So the stronger one is glass and the weaker one is air. Okay, so if you see the corresponding value of potential, if you see the corresponding value of the potential, then here what would be the potential? 300 kilovolt per centimeter, and potential can be given by electric field multiplied by the distance. So 5 into 10 power minus 3. What could be the value? So if I wanted to write in terms of centimeters, so in terms of centimeters, this is going to be 0.5 centimeters. So this would be 150 kilovolts, and here 15 kilovolts. Because what I am doing is that I am multiplying my maximum electric field with the of the distance here, which is 0.5 centimeters. 5 millimeters is nothing but 0.5 centimeters. So here it can withstand the maximum potential of 150 kilovolts. Here it can withstand the maximum potential of 15 kilovolts. Yes or no? Correct? This is the relation that we have seen. The potential is going to be electric field multiplied with the distance. Now please tell me one thing. The question is that what is the maximum amount of voltage that you can apply? The question is that we have to apply the maximum amount of voltage that we can apply without breakdown. The question is without breakdown. Now can you please tell me the maximum voltage that you are going to apply? Can I say it is directly going to be 150 plus 15? Can I say this? That the maximum voltage that I can apply totally is going to be Vmax 1 plus Vmax 2? No. Yes, very good. So no, because if you are applying a greater voltage, then probably your air is going to be disturbed. So what you have to see, because this is a series case, isn't it? This is nothing but a series case. So what you have to be seeing is that if I apply some voltage here, for example, if I am applying 100 volts here totally on this capacitor, if I apply totally 100 volts on this capacitor, what is the amount of voltage that comes to air and what is the amount of voltage that comes to glass? And here in this case, I am more concerned about air than glass. Because whenever the maximum potential has been asked for you, then you have to see what is my weaker part. Does my weaker part support me or not? Here the weaker part is nothing but air. Okay, and it is much weaker when compared to glass. So what you have to see is that whether the weaker part can sustain or not if I am applying a particular amount of potential. That is what you have to check. So first thing I am interested is that if I am applying, for example, 100 volts, totally if I am applying 100 volts, what is the amount of voltage that comes to air and what is the amount of voltage that comes to glass? Okay, so the other day we have seen that the capacitance is inversely proportional to the drop voltage in the series case. So what I can write is that C1 by C2 is equal to V2 by V1. C1 I can write it as epsilon 1 A by D. C2 I can write it as epsilon 2 A by D. So D A gets cancelled out. Epsilon 1 A by D, epsilon 2 A by D is equal to V2 by V1. So epsilon 1 by epsilon 2 is going to be equal to V2 by V1. Epsilon 1 by epsilon 2 is going to be V2 by V1. And we know epsilon 1 by epsilon 2 is going to be what? If I consider this as 1 and this as 2, then it would be 1 by 4. 1 by 4. What is this? V2 by V1. Okay, so it means that V1 by V2 will be equal to 4 by 1. And what is V1? What is V1? V1 is nothing but the voltage that I am applying over here, and here it is V2. So how V1 and V2 are related? How V1 and V2 are related? V1 and V2 is going to be 4:1. It means if I apply 100 volts totally, if I apply 100 volts, then 75 volts is going to move into air and 25 volts, okay, so totally if I consider 5 parts are there, 4 parts move into the air and 1 part move into the glass. So totally if I am taking 5 units of this, so each unit is going to be 20 volts. Then 80 volts move into the air, 80 volts move into the air, and 20 volts is going to move into the glass. This is the story of it. Yes or no? 80 volts is going to move into the air and 20 volts is going to move into the glass. This is the story of it. So in that way, do you think that I can apply the totally 165 volts? Whatever, 165 kilovolts. Is it possible that I can apply totally 165 kilovolts here? If I apply 165 kilovolts totally, considering that here the maximum voltage is 15 kilovolts and here it is 150 kilovolts, totally if I apply 165, then 4 parts of it is going to move into this, 4/5 of this, and 1/5 of this is only going to come to the glass. Now you tell me how we have to approach this. You understood that this is the voltage ratio between the two dielectrics we are having. Now how to find out what is the maximum voltage that you can apply? Okay, so I'll repeat once again, Hubli. See here, I think you have understood this particular part till here, that V1 by V2 is going to be 4:1. V1 by V2 is going to be 4:1. Now you see, it means the potentials are divided in the ratio of 4:1. So 4/5 of the part will move into the first one, and 1/5 of the part is going to move into the second one. Yes or no? If I am taking the ratio of 4:1, totally is going to be 5 units. 4 plus 1, totally 5 units. Out of which 4/5 is going to move into the air and 1/5 is going to move into the glass. So that is why you are getting 4/5 of this is nothing but 80, 1/5 of this is nothing but 20. Clear? Now please tell me how to approach this particular problem. That what should be the maximum amount of potential that I can apply? What should be the maximum amount of potential that I can apply? Can you please tell me? What could be our approach? Yes, very good, Bhanushekar. See, what I will be doing is that I know this can sustain only 15 kilovolts. The first one can sustain only 15 kilovolts. So let me apply this 15 kilovolts. Let me apply this 15 kilovolts. This is the maximum value. I can't apply more than this. Now if I apply 15 kilovolts here, what would be the potential in this one? If I apply 15 kilovolts here, what would be the potential in this one? According to this formula, if V1 is equal to maximum, V1 max is equal to 15 kilovolts, then V2 will be equal to 1 by 4 of V1, which is 15 by 4, which is nothing but 3.75 kilovolts. 3.75 kilovolts. So V2 value is going to be equal to 3.75 kilovolts. So totally you are going to get the value, the total amount of voltage, which is V1 plus V2, is going to be 15 plus 3.75, which is 18.75 kilovolts. Now what is the reason why I am moving to this approach is because the maximum value that you are going to apply without to break down is dependent on the weaker part. And we know that whatever voltage totally you are applying in series, maximum part of it or 4 parts of it is going to move into the air. So I will be doing with respect to the weaker part only. Okay, so 15 kilovolts I am applying here. So if I apply 15 kilovolts here, I will check how much can be applied here, which came to be 3.75 kilovolts, So totally what you can apply is that 15 here. If I apply 15 here, there can only be 3.75 here. Totally it's going to be 18.75 kilovolts. Please take down these formulas. So these are the other 2 types of capacitance, not important in the examination point of view. Very rarely a question has come from this particular part. Okay, so please take down the formulas. But fortunately we have one question which has been asked in 2015. Right, so coming to this problem, a coaxial capacitor of inner radius. So what is inner radius? So here the inner radius is A and the outer radius is B. So the inner radius is 1 mm and outer radius is 5 mm, has the capacitance per unit length as 172 picofarad per meter. If the ratio of outer to inner radius is doubled, the capacitance per unit length in picofarad per meter is dash. So capacitance per meter per length is going to be equal to 2 pi epsilon by ln of B by A. So if I can call it as C dash, capacitance per unit length as C dash. So C dash is something which is proportional to the of, inversely proportional to the of ln of B by A. So initially the values of P is given as 5 mm and A is also 1 mm. So obviously the value of B by A is going to be 5. This is the first case. In the second case, what happens is that we have doubled it. So B2 by A2 given that the ratio has been doubled. Outer to inner ratio has been doubled, which now becomes 10. Now according to our formula, C2 bar by C1 bar will be equal to ln of B1 by A1 by ln of B2 by A2. So ln of B1 by A1 is 5, ln of B2 by A2 value is 10. Okay, so C2 dash will be equal to C1 dash multiplied by this particular value, which comes down to, C2 dash will come down to, as the students have suggested, it is 122.32 picofarad per meter. Right, so please look at the board. Don't write anything. Please look at the board. So what we are interested here is that we know the electric fields are moving in dielectrics. So now you are interested in a situation where your electric field is moving from one medium to the other. Now when it is crossing the interface, what would it be its characteristic? When it is crossing the interface, what would be its characteristic? For example, if before crossing the interface where it is moving inside the medium 1, having the electric field of E1 near the interface, now if the same electric field is now going to cross the interface, now what would be the electric field in the medium 2 crossing the interface? This is what we are interested in. How the characteristic of the electric field is going to change when it is moving from one medium to the other. So let us consider that the medium 1 is having the permittivity as epsilon 1 and medium 2 is having the permittivity of epsilon 2. Now how the electric field is going to change its values when it is moving from one medium to the other is what we are interested in. Now before going to the concept, what is very very important in this concept is that once the electric field is given to us, once the electric field in a medium has been given to us and we will be asked to find out what is the electric field in the second medium. We will be asked to find out what is the electric field in the second medium. Now, before getting into the problem, the very first thing that you have to do is that whatever electric field is given to us, we have to separate it into two components. We have to separate it into two components. One we can call it as the tangential component. The other we can call it as a normal component. What is that? So once an electric field has been given to us, we will separate it in two parts. One is the tangential component and the other is the normal component. So now what would be the tangential component and normal component is purely dependent upon the interface, because we are talking about a tangential component to the interface and normal component to the interface. So based on the different interfaces that we are taking, we will be having different values of the tangential component and the normal component. So here what we are doing is that we are dividing into two parts the electric field E1. One is the tangential component and the other is the normal component. Now let us consider the interface is x is equal to 0, and we are having the electric field as EXAX, EYAY and EZAZ. Let us consider, don't write anything, just look at the board. Let us consider the electric field that is given to us is having the x component, y component and z component. Now if the interface is x is equal to 0, if the interface is x is equal to 0, can you please tell me, for this interface of x is equal to 0, which component is going to be normal component and which component is going to be the tangential component? Which one is going to be the normal component and which one is going to be the tangential component? Any idea? That for the interface of x is equal to 0, which component we can say as the normal and which component we can say as the tangential? Let me consider x is equal to 0. Now what is the meaning of x is equal to 0? If this plane is x is equal to 0, can I call it as a yz plane? The x is equal to 0, is it not a yz plane? Yes, it's a yz plane. Now for this yz plane, yzx, can you please tell me what is the normal component to this yz plane? Very good. So x component will be the normal component. Okay, because for the interface x is equal to 0, which is the yz plane, the normal to it is nothing but the x direction. So in the electric field which is given to us, the normal component will be the x component, and any component which is in y direction and any component which is present in z direction. Okay, these two components, the y direction component and the z direction component, both of them will be tangential. Both of them will be tangential. You can see that this component is tangential to the interface and this component is tangential to the interface. So y and z both are tangential, whereas the x component is going to be normal to us. The x component is going to be normal to us. Is it clear or not? So I would consider that Ex is the normal component, Ey, Ez are the tangential components. The second one, interface. If the interface is y is equal to 0, y is equal to 0 is nothing but zx plane, and for the zx plane, y direction is going to be the normal direction. So in this case, Ey will be normal, Ex, Ez will be tangential. And the third one, if the interface is z is equal to 0, if the interface is z is equal to 0, then Ez will be the normal component, Ex, Ey Ex comma Ey would be the tangential components. So please note down till here. Right. So now we have to establish the boundary conditions which will be helpful for us to find out what is the electric field in the next medium. Okay. So we have to find what is the boundary conditions which are present for this particular type of concept. Okay, so we will be using the concept of Maxwell's equations to establish the boundary conditions here. Right. So first thing that I want to do is that I wanted to have a closed loop around this particular interface. I will be have closed loop around this interface, and this closed loop will be having the width as del W, and I would consider that it is having the height of del H. The height of this loop is del H and the width of this loop is del W, and I think you all knew that any electric field which is static in nature will satisfy the condition that E dot dl is equal to 0. Yes or no? Right. So now the closed line integral of E dot dl is equal to 0 is the Maxwell's equation that we have learned. Now let us establish here electric field in this direction. The electric field in this direction is nothing but the tangential component. So I would say it is AT1. AT1 multiplied by the length, which is del W, plus electric field in the first half of the height that we are having. The electric field in the first half of the height, this is nothing but the normal component, isn't it? This is the normal component En1 multiplied by del H by 2, multiplied by del H by 2, plus in this half we are having the electric field which is moving in the normal direction. Let us say the normal direction is going to be En2 here, and here the tangential component is Et2. Now here, because it is moving upwards in the normal direction itself, I would say it is En2 multiplied by the height, which is del H by 2, plus here you see in which direction the electric field is moving. The electric field is moving in the opposite direction to the top of the actual tangential component. So in that case, what would we consider? The electric field in the opposite direction to the top of the actual tangential component, I can consider it as minus Et2 multiplied by del W. And here you see that the electric field is coming downwards, having a height of del H by 2. So coming downwards, it means that it is moving opposite to the top of the normal component. So I can say it is minus En2 multiplied by del H by 2. And the last part is that here it is once again moving downwards in the next half of the medium. So I could say it is minus En1 multiplied by del H by 2. The total value is going to be equal to the top 0. The total value is equal to the top 0. Right. See here, I'll repeat once again. The closed line integral of E dot dl is equal to 0, the Maxwell's equation that we have. Now, here what we are doing is that we are moving around this loop. And initially, if I am moving in this direction, it is the same direction of the tangential. So it is Et1 multiplied by the width, plus here it is En1 in the same medium, the first medium, in the same direction we are moving. So En1 multiplied by del H by 2, half of it, plus En2 moving in the second medium. So it is going to be En2 multiplied by del H by 2. Moving in the reverse direction, it's going to become minus Et2. It is minus Et2 multiplied by del W. Coming downwards, so if it is coming downwards, it is En2 minus En2 multiplied by del H by 2, and here again moving downwards, it is minus En1 multiplied by del H by 2. Totally it is going to be equal to the top 0. Can you please tell me what are the components which are going to get cancelled out? The normal components, if you observe, they are completely going to get cancelled out. Totally the normal components are going to get cancelled out. So we have a relation that Et1 minus ET2 multiplied by del W is equal to 0, correct? ET1 minus ET2 multiplied by del W is equal to 0. Del W anyway is not equal to 0, so ET1 minus ET2 should be equal to 0. So the value of ET1 is equal to ET2. ET1 is equal to ET2. Please note it down till here. Right, so now we have to have the other boundary condition, and we will be having the next boundary condition again using the Maxwell's equation, which is the first Maxwell's equation. So what is the first Maxwell's equation? The closed surface integral of D dot ds is equal to 0. The closed surface integral of D dot ds is equal to 0. Now to apply this, I will be considering a very small part of the interface. I will be considering a very small part of the interface. Now the interface, if it is like this, okay, so the interface is like this, I would be considering a very small part of the interface like this, okay? I would be considering a very small part of the interface. So if I do that and correspondingly extend it and ensure that this becomes a cylindrical surface, and ensure that this becomes a cylindrical surface, and if the total flux lines which are entering it is like this, and the total number of flux lines leaving it is like this. Now along this, now if I consider that my interface is charged, if I consider that my interface is charged, okay, so if this interface, whatever I'm having, let me consider that this interface is charged. Now because of the surface, because this is a surface, a plane, so we have to consider which density? What is the density that we have to consider? What is the density that we have to consider in this case? Surface charge density, very good. So we have to consider the surface charge density, rho s, yes. So now what I'll do is that this is a cylindrical surface having some incoming flux and having some outgoing flux, and this surface that I'm considering here, the smaller surface, is a differential surface. So let me call this surface as del S. Let me call this surface as del S. Now if I apply the concept of Gauss law, then what we understand is that the net number of flux lines coming out of this closed surface, the net number of flux lines which are coming out of the closed surface should be equal to the charge enclosed. Should be equal to the charge enclosed. So if you observe the flux lines which are moving in this direction, which is nothing but the normal direction itself, but here we will be considering the flux lines. So whenever we are considering the flux lines, we have a habit of representing the flux density, right? Whenever we are talking about the flux lines, we are having the habit of representing the flux density. So here you can see that the flux lines are moving inside, which is in the direction of normal direction itself. So if I wanted to represent in terms of density, I will be calling it as dN1. I will be calling it as dN1 because it is the same normal direction we are having. Now when I come to the second part of it, here we are moving upward direction. This is also a normal part. There is also a normal part in the same direction. So let me call it as dN2. So the corresponding flux densities here in the medium 1, I am considering it as dN1. In the other medium, we are going to consider it as dN2. So according to Gauss law, what we can write? According to Gauss law, what we can write? The net number of flux lines. The net number of flux lines which are coming outwards. So the net outward is nothing but the net outward is outward minus inward. The flux lines which are coming out, I can consider it as dN2 multiplied by del S, correct? The flux lines which are coming out, I can consider it as dN2 multiplied by del S. This is the outward minus inward. Minus inward, it is dN1 multiplied by del S. This would be equal to dash. Why am I considering 0 here? I should be considering what? I should be considering Q because this particular interface is now charged. This particular interface is now charged. If this interface is not charged, then yes, according to Gauss law, it should be equal to 0. But if this interface is charged, I would be considering that whatever charge we are having here, the closed surface integral of d dot ds is equal to the charge which is enclosed by it. Now, can you please tell me what is the charge which is enclosed by the surface? What is the charge which is enclosed here? What should I represent my charge as? We have considered that it is having the charge density of rho s, right? It is having a charge density of rho s. Can I consider it as rho s multiplied by del s? Please tell me. Can I consider it as rho s multiplied by del s? Correct? Yes. Because here the charge surface that I am considering is del s. So charge density is rho s. So the total charge is enclosed is going to be rho s ds. Rho s del s. So I can consider del s as common and cancel out on both sides. So I will be having dn2 minus dn1 is equal to rho s. dn2 minus dn1 is equal to rho s. Now, if you don't have any charge interface, it means that if this interface is not at all charged, it means it is 0. Rho s becomes 0. If rho s becomes 0, then you will be having dn2 value is equal to dn1. dn2 value is equal to dn1. Okay, so the second boundary condition that we have established is that dn2 minus dn1 is equal to rho s. The second boundary condition that we have established is that dn2 minus dn1 is equal to rho s. Are you able to understand? What we have done here? We have considered a small differential surface del s and we have constructed a cylinder around it which is having the incoming lines and the outgoing lines. Okay, so we are applying the Gauss law here. The closed line integral of d dot ds is equal to the of q. Here it is q because of the reason that your interface is charged. So if your interface is charged, it will be having a charge of q. So the closed line integral of d dot ds is equal to q. So the closed surface integral, right? So the closed surface integral of d dot ds is going to be equal to q, which says that the net flux lines which is coming out, is going to be equal to the charge enclosed. So if I talk about the net, it is outgoing minus incoming is going to be the net for us. So dn2 multiplied by del s is the outgoing, dn1 multiplied by del s is the incoming. So dn2 into del s minus dn1 into del s is going to be equal to the charge enclosed, which is rho s del s. So if you solve it, you are getting dn2 minus dn1 is equal to rho s. Right? So if the interface is not charged, then you will be having a very simple formula that dn2 will be equal to dn1. So these are the two boundary conditions that we have established, and both are very, very important in the examination point of view. Okay, so the first one that we have to consider in this sort of concept is that, first thing is that, given a particular electric field, we have to find out the tangential component and the normal component. The second thing that we are going to apply is that the boundary conditions themselves. So we will be equating the tangential components, because always the tangential component of the first medium will be equal to the tangential component of the second medium. This is always true. And we will be applying the second one. If it is charged, if it is given that your interface is charged, then they will be having some amount of rho s. But if the interface is not charged, then you can directly write the value of dn2 is equal to dn1. Directly you can write dn2 is going to be equal to dn1.